Hi there, this is our week 3 help video, and I apologize it's a little bit later in the week than I usually post it, but this is information that I hope is helpful to you throughout the rest of the semester. I wanted to talk this week about just some of the resources now that we're getting a little bit further in and hopefully you're starting to figure out your way around Blackboard and My Spanish Lab. I wanted to point out some of the additional resources that are there to support you as you work your way through the course this semester. And some of them you've probably already found, and some of them I've probably mentioned in other videos or announcements, but let's see. The first one is I went over here to the left-hand navigation menu in Blackboard, and remember, you land on announcements when you first come in. You're probably spending most of your time in the assignments tab, but if you click on the second tab, the course documents tab, here are some of the things that you're going to see there. So first is the My Spanish Lab registration instructions, and you're all registered for My Spanish Lab, so you should be all set there. The next is this sample weekly schedule. So if you're finding that you're running into just feeling like you aren't having the time to process all of the information and all of the content of the course, maybe try breaking it up a little bit like this and see if this works. Because what happens is if you are trying to do all of your work in 1 or even 2 study sessions during the week, then your brain may be hitting overload capacity during those study sessions, and you may not be able to retain a lot of that information. So check out this sample schedule and see if you can make this work. You may have to make some adjustments based on your work and school schedules, but see if you can find a way to break it up so that you're studying on, this has it laid out to be studying on 4 different study sessions throughout the week. And they're fairly long study sessions, so even those may need to be broken up a little bit more for you. So give that a try and see if that's helpful for identifying a workflow that's going to work well for you in the class. The next thing is verb conjugation charts, and we've just started to get into verb conjugations with the verb ser, but we're going to do a lot more of that throughout the remainder of the semester. Every chapter will have some verbs that you'll be learning the conjugations of. So this is these charts here. There's a blank one up here, and then one that's filled in as an example for how to use the verb conjugation charts. That might be helpful, and I'll probably do another video a little bit later on showing you how to use these charts once we get into more of those conjugations. This is just a list of hundreds of verbs that follow the regular verb conjugations that we learn in chapter 2 as just kind of to reinforce for you that once you learn those conjugations, it's a pattern that you can apply over hundreds of different Spanish verbs so that you can increase your ability to communicate in the language. We'll get into stem changing verbs later in the semester. Just kind of keep this in the back of your mind that there's some tools here for stem changing verbs when we get there. This is the rubric for those culture discussion boards. We have the first one this week in week 3, and then each third week we'll have another one. So weeks 3, 6, 9, 12, and 15. So be sure to review that so you know how to get the best possible grade on those culture discussion boards. This is the rubric I used for the live chat this week. I just graded it essentially as a completion grade. So if you did it, I gave you full credit for all of these criteria, but then for the future ones in weeks 5, 8, 11, and 14, I will go through and grade it more specifically based on the work that you submitted. And then there are flashcards for for each chapter's vocabulary. These are in Quizlet, so you can download the Quizlet app to your phone or a tablet and be able to have these on the go. There's also the QR codes to access those same flashcards if that's helpful to you, to scan that with your phone. And then some of you need this week as you're doing your revisions for your composition to submit the final draft. These are the instructions for typing those special characters in Spanish. So the first set is instructions for if you're typing in Microsoft Word, you do these. There's also some of those alt codes, and there's a website here that works also. You can also just Google whatever operating system you're using. So if you're using a Mac or something, you can Google how to type special characters in that program, and follow those instructions as well. So these are here in case they're helpful, but don't ever underestimate the power of Google for learning things like that as well. All right, so now I want to switch over to my Spanish lab and point out a few things there for extra support for you. Oh, sorry, that's the wrong spot. So the e-text, and I know some of you have been struggling with getting the e-text all set up and working correctly. If you are still having trouble with that, don't hesitate to contact me. If you prefer to use the print textbook and you've gone into the bookstore to pick up your print textbook, then that's fine. You're welcome to use that. But I want to point out one of the reasons that I recommend the e-text, and that is because of the audio. So if you haven't noticed this already, the vocabulary where it shows up throughout the textbook and on this list at the end of each chapter has the audio so you can listen to it. So that's really helpful as you're working on developing your Spanish pronunciation skills and getting more opportunity. This is, of course, one of the potential drawbacks in an online class is not having as much ability to listen to and speak Spanish. So this, if you use the audio in the e-text, that will help to give you more opportunity to listen to the language. I just realized I forgot something in Blackboard that I wanted to point out. So I'm switching back over to Blackboard. Sorry that this is a little disjointed. All right, so going back up here to the Assignments tab in Blackboard, I want to remind you of the structure of the weekly folders. I'm going into week 2 just because it has the vocabulary and grammar lessons. So in case you have kind of gotten caught up in using my Spanish lab primarily and forgot about Blackboard, because I know that can happen because you're spending so much more time in my Spanish lab, I wanted to remind you that here in Blackboard, I have links to the tutorials. These are also available through my Spanish lab. You can access them either place. But this here in Blackboard, I have them linked with the specific lesson that they pertain to. So I have the pages in the textbook, and it's those same pages whether you're using the e-text or the print textbook. Mommy. There's these grammar lessons, or sorry, not grammar or vocabulary tutorials, depending on the lesson. Audio files of the vocabulary here, and then I tell you specifically which of the SAM assignments pertain to that lesson. And then the same thing if you look at the grammar lessons. I will have a brief introduction, tell you which pages it is in the textbook, and then I'll have some sort of additional materials here, videos sometimes from YouTube, or and sometimes there's some that I've created or that another faculty member at CWI has created. Other times they're just lessons that I've found on YouTube that are presented the same way that I would present them if I were going to create a video. Or I'll have web pages linked that have another explanation. And so this one has several linked pages plus 2 different videos, and then here the SAM assignments. So you don't need to use all of these materials that I have linked here. They're just different explanations of the same topic, so that if you read the textbook pages and it doesn't click with you, there's other ways that you can get that same content and have access to the material in a variety of different ways. And if none of those are clicking for you, let me know, because I'm happy to always try to supply other materials that might be presented in a slightly different way. So be sure, though, to make use of all of these resources as you are working through a lesson if you're really struggling with it. So I wanted to point that out to you. And I do recommend, if you're struggling with the content, consider, rather than starting in my Spanish lab with the to-do list or the calendar view and just working your way through everything, instead you might consider starting in Blackboard using these materials, going down here and seeing, okay, I need to do that section of the My Spanish Lab assignments. Once you've done those, come back and then do the next lesson and kind of break it up for yourself a little bit better that way if you're struggling with catching on to some of the content. Okay, one last thing quickly. I apologize for the length of this video. Where did it go? I lost it. Okay, so let me see if I can get quickly back into this. There it is. Okay. In My Spanish Lab, and you've probably already seen this, but if you submit an assignment and you don't get 100%, and you have the option to redo it again, first check this where it says need help with this activity, and it has, these are the same links that you would see in Blackboard and elsewhere in My Spanish Lab, but it has the link to the e-text that pertains to this lesson, the different grammar tutorials. So let's say you read the textbook, you feel like you have a decent grasp on it, you come in here and start working through the assignment and it's not clicking. Then maybe you go in and you view those tutorials, or you do some of the extra practice to see whether you're getting the content. And then let's say it's one of the assignments that you're responding in sentence form. If you go through and you do some of these extra practice assignments and you're getting those all correct, then that's a good indicator that maybe you have some misspellings, or you're not following the model 100%, or something like that is happening with the assignment. And if you do feel like you can't quite identify what the problem is, especially with those sentence length assignment or those sentence length responses where there's so many opportunities to get it wrong, shoot me a quick email, especially if you include a screenshot of your answers. Then I can, wherever I am from the email on my phone, I can look at your screenshot and send a quick response back and say, it looks like this is the problem. You have some misspellings, or you're not following the model, or something like that. So definitely consider me to be one of the resources that you have if you're struggling with anything in the class. Okay, sorry, this is already at 12 minutes. I apologize for the length of this. I hope it's helpful, and I will see you all online. Thanks.